Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Birth Astrology YouTube channel. It was nearly 30 years ago that a mutual friend introduced me to John Wilner. And we hit it off right away. And I became instantly intrigued by what he was doing as he explained to me what spiritual birth astrology and spiritual birth time charts were all about. And we attended a number of different astrology conferences and both went to a monthly astrology meeting in a location close to where we lived at the time. Anyway, and during our numerous conversations, John told me one day that he went back through all the charts that he had done, both as research and for clients, and he discovered that on average, the difference between a physical birth time and a spiritual birth time was 1 hour and 40 minutes. The spiritual birth time being earlier in time than the physical birth time. Now, it's important that you remember that 1 hour and 40 minutes for a couple of reasons. One of them is the fact that for 5 out of 6 people who have studied or become involved with astrology in some way have often looked at sidereal or Hindu Indian astrology for answers that they can't find with their physical birth time charts. And some of them get a glimmer of hope from a sidereal chart because, as I said, in 5 out of 6 cases, the sidereal offset being 26 degrees moves the physical birth time ascendant into the sign preceding itself. So, say, if, for instance, you think you're a Taurus rising, but you go to a sidereal chart, now you're an Aries rising 5 out of 6 times because of the 26 degree offset. However, in some cases, that still doesn't work. In my own example, my physical birth time ascendant is 28.5 degrees approximately. And subtracting 26 degrees from that still leaves my sidereal ascendant as Taurus, which of course does not fit me in personality, temperament, or physical appearance. So that doesn't always work, but for a lot of people it seems to work. Now, another interesting point related to this is the fact that at one time in, back in the late 80s or early 90s, I suppose it was, there was a statistician who decided he was once and for all going to disprove the validity of astrology. So some people questioned his methods and whether they were valid or not, but that was his profession, that being a statistician, so he approached it from that angle. Anyway, he went out and gathered up birth information for quite a large number of people, and then picked things that should be, by traditional astrological methods, pretty prevalent. Now, statistically, say someone like a professional athlete, you would think Mars would be prominent in their chart. But if astrology doesn't work, then there would be a normal distribution through all 12 houses in a physical birth time chart of the planet Mars. There wouldn't be an emphasis in any particular group of houses. This is exactly what he found. But the strange thing was, where he found the preponderance of Mars, for example, in professional athletes, was in the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, and the 12th houses. Now, of course, that by traditional astrology doesn't quite compute, and he had to jump through all kinds of hoops trying to find a logical reason why the cadent houses would show the emphasis of professional experience, in this case, athletes. However, if you take and apply John's 1 hour and 40 minute, now of course that's a numerical average, has nothing to do with the actual calculated spiritual birth times. It's just a numerical average. But if you apply that numerical average to the statistician's research, all of a sudden the house structure is earlier than the house structure that he used, and it just happens to be at 1 hour and 40 minutes. One house earlier, or one sign earlier. That therefore places the emphasis, in this example of professional athletes, in the angular houses 1, 4, 7, and 10, which makes perfectly good sense and doesn't need to be explained away with some kind of mysterious hidden idea that it would be, the emphasis would be in cadent houses. So you can take that for what it's worth. Statistically shown to be evidence that professional endeavors do show way more than a statistical norm, which would be basically average across all the houses. The same emphasis. But things like professional athletes and scientists and university professors and things like that, I don't remember exactly how many different types of professions this statistician checked, or different personality types and things like that. But he did find above the statistical norm an emphasis in the cadent houses, which of course, if offset by 1 hour and 40 minutes in time, would make all of that emphasis fall in the cardinal houses. So that's kind of the whole thing of spiritual birth time astrology. It works. You may or may not accept the fact that it works. And I mean, I've talked to numerous people, professional and amateur astrologers, and the amount of cognitive dissonance they have to go through to justify continuing to use their physical birth time charts just boggles my mind, personally. When the evidence for a spiritual birth time chart for them clearly shows its superiority in both describing them, their physical characteristics, their personality, and the timing of events in their lives. Anyway, that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this little series, found it informative, maybe helpful in some way. And I'm going to say goodbye now. Thank you very much for listening.